Nicely said, Peter. I didn't hear any bird chirps. Well, I have to say it's a pure honor to be here and to be invited to talk to you a little bit about our corner of the world out here in Oregon, where I've spent the last almost 30 years doing the work that you all are doing in the room. So this is the town I live in. This is Bend, Oregon. It's a little bit different landscape than in Queenstown, but you might mind the three towers there, the smokestacks, and keep an eye on those for some future slides. But this is a story really of diversification and what we call our 40-year overnight success. So to Peter's comments, it's definitely something that doesn't happen overnight by any stretch of the imagination. So those smokestacks are there. This was it's now a landmark in the community. This was once the largest sawmill in the world doing pine. Ponderosa pine was our wood of choice in Central Oregon region. And the river was not a place you swam in, which is certainly a place you do that today, and raft and kayak and so forth. And when this mill closed, really the last remnants of it in the 1980s, the town was really in turmoil. 25% unemployment, about the same number of vacancies, vacancy rate for commercial industrial properties. And they really didn't know what to do, but they knew that whatever they're going to do, they were going to have to bootstrap it. Very small population base, not much political power, isolated from other places, from the rest of our state, and very far away from our nation's capital on the other coast. So, and for those that don't know where Oregon is, it's that little state right above California. I probably have heard a little bit about that. So, and our transition was related to tourism. So tourism was meant as the diversification vehicle. But when folks said, okay, well, we need to have a new industry, tourism was not the replacement. Tourism was the means to the end. It was going to be an industry that was going to be created because it was very, very small at that time, and it was very undeveloped. And so the transition was tourism, but it was also, going to be a long-term industry. And the real purpose behind that, if you see, it's hard to see a little bit with some golf here, but golf was the major amenity that was being offered, and it was trying to tap into the business traveler, so they would come, visit, be exposed to the place, and eventually possibly bring their business there. It was a long-term play. And so the transition was tourism, but it's still very much with us today. Shortly after that, there was a focus of an organization was created to really help with the business development part of that. So it's not just a hope that those would be converted into business opportunities, but actually convert those and help things kind of come in from the outside. And that focus was always in the traded sector, and that's maybe a term that's familiar to you, maybe not. It's kind of economic development lingo, but it's really export related, whether it's a service or a good. More and more things are not measured in terms of widgets these days, and less consumer local. It wasn't that those jobs weren't important. It was just we're trying to increase the economic pie rather than redistribute it in different ways. So I think that's a similar focus you have here in New Zealand. So a little conventional wisdom in economic development is in diversification, you pick a couple of industries, you focus on those, and you build some critical mass. And we know that takes time and so forth. So one of the things that we focused on was aircraft manufacturing. Again, we're not a large place, so people are like, you've got to be crazy trying to build aircraft, Well, they're not big aircraft. They're not Boeing. It's not Lockheed Martin. We had been successful in recruiting a small company out of California in the Mojave Desert that did composite aircraft, and it was kind of an upcoming thing, and they were all experimental. Well, they eventually were able to get those certified and went into production, so you could actually fly them out of the airport instead of building them in your garage. So we built up an industry that was about 1,500 employees and about $500 million in GDP. And the Great Recession came along and pretty much wiped about 80% of that away. So all of our efforts to focus on one or two of those industries were basically gone in 18 months. So we took a little different approach and went after 10 different industries after that, lesson learned. And so started building critical mass in 10 different sectors, which I think conventional wisdom said can't be done, but we went ahead and did it. And I'll start off with kind of a story that I think is really maybe translatable to what's happening here with your smaller communities in Central Otago. And that is separated by about 20 years, two guys decided to start a bioscience company called Bend Research. And they scraped by on federal grants, research grants, for probably 20 years before landing a contract, their first big contract with a company called Pfizer. And then they went on to do work for Pfizer for about 20 years and built the business up to about 50 employees. Meanwhile, just attracting people one-off. There was no engineering, no chemistry, education being delivered locally. And they eventually were able to build a business that was acquired. And it's just taken off from there. In the meantime, the guy on the left here, Rod Ray, always used to say, if I wasn't such a jerk to work for, we wouldn't have so many startups and kind of spin-offs. So not only did some of the research get spun off in different industries, but different people left the firm and started their own things. And today, there's 33 firms in this space from that one company, just the two guys basically that got it started. And 1,300 jobs that are in our area. And it's really become in our entire state, which is about 4.3 million people. If you were to look for a PhD or a chemist or a scientist that's doing bioscience or doing pharmaceutical research, you'd probably find them in Bend. We have the lion's share of the state. And it's kind of looks like a little bit of a family tree and a little bit of a molecule, but you can kind of see some of the companies that have come out of this effort. Again, starting very small with one company and growing to be a decent force, at least in our small neck of the world. So, another example, which I know is happening across the region here in the district, is especially food products. Here's Becca and Shell with Red Plate Foods. They're lactose intolerant, they're gluten intolerant, and so they came up with their specialty mix of cookies and granola and cakes and so forth. And this is an industry it's actually built some critical mass as well, but it's still very small, and it's fairly low margin. So it's one of those that has probably the opposite end of the spectrum of bioscience. And so it's one we struggled along to. And these kinds of get-togethers, they're too busy making the cakes and making the cookies to sometimes get away to actually talk to each other and have some of that interaction that grows industries. You've probably heard of this before. I don't know how prevalently it's playing now with the internet and websites and so forth, but search engine optimization actually has its roots in Bend. A small company, and some folks got in on that and said, hey, well, I think we can game the system. We can type all these things behind the scenes, and then those clients will actually get seen more. Now, the algorithms got a lot smarter since then, but it was able to start a little cluster of software companies that now has grown into about 6 dozen firms and about 2,000 employees just in that sector. Again, over a 30-year period. So it's definitely a slow process, but one of the things that we went out to these companies and said, what do you need? What can we do to help as economic development folks? And they said, we got it. You're probably not smart enough to understand what we're doing anyway. And so what you could do for us is get better air service. And so we spent 30 years increasing the air service and have, I think, 5 or 6 airlines serving our small market with like 52 flights a day. So it's really been successful. It's taken a lot of work and effort, but the airlines know us now, and they know we kind of don't take no for an answer. We'll be back the next quarter to talk to them if they don't kind of come clean with some service for us. And then another industry I think it's got potentially really great applicability to what the venture capital of the world being here in this beautiful place is outdoor gear and apparel. And we started off with just a handful of companies in this sector. Most of them were very small. I think the largest company was 15 employees. And they said, wouldn't it be nice if we actually had some more companies? So they were very collaborative, and they said, why, if we have more companies, then maybe we can solve some of our distribution problems. Maybe it's we can do a little better job of branding. This place is a cool place to buy outdoor products. And so we decided to offer beer and pizza to get these folks together. That was our contribution. I know it's really high tech, and I am simplifying things a little bit here because it's a short talk. But we essentially provided the beer and pizza and set the table and started the agenda, and then let them talk and let them run what they thought would be a good idea. And their first idea is, well, we know these people across the country or even internationally that run these businesses. Why don't we just talk to them about moving some of their operations here? And they did just that, and it produced 0 leads. So they're like, okay, well, that didn't work. What's next? And so they actually thought, they worked around that and said, we have so many people locally that are looking to start their own businesses. Maybe we can support them. And what came out of that is pretty remarkable. So they really started off with the Bend Outdoor Works, which is one of the first accelerators in the country, I think maybe even in the world, that's dedicated to trying to help outdoor products companies launch. So giving them advice, giving them a little bit of capital, and helping them go pitch. This is one of the pitches, where 400 people show up to cheer them on and give them some critique. And from that, really, the Oregon Outdoor Alliance formed. We didn't have an industry association in the state. There's some nationally, but they tend to act like national organizations, and they don't spend a lot of time with these individual companies. This was launched really by folks in Bend that said, okay, well, let's provide some service. And now, a state which has companies like Nike and Columbia Sportswear and Keen Footwear all headquartered there, and Adidas North America, is now served by this little place, and with 2% of the state's population out in Bend, and the whole state really wraps around this outdoor alliance. And what do they have every month? Beer 30s. So they kind of took the beer and pizza model and said, that seemed to work. Let's continue that. And from that, one of those companies, a company called Roughwear, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them before, but they do dog life jackets and everything else you can say for dogs. Had some extra space when they changed up their plans from put it into a 3PL from their own warehouse, and they built one of the first outdoor focused co-working spaces in it with Embark. Perfect name for a dog company there. And then finally, one of those companies, anybody heard of Hydro Flask? So Hydro Flask was purchased by Helen of Troy, a much larger company, multi-billion-dollar company. Made a few people wealthy. Some of those people invested in an endowment in the university. And the university launched one of the first programs for outdoor gear and products in the country as well. So if you want to be in that sector, you want to know what you're doing with design and kind of even maybe some of this environmental engineering and so forth, this is the degree for you, and it's just in its first couple of years. So I will leave you with this sage wisdom that beer and pizza can be very powerful. And I think exactly what's happening here today is part of that. People are getting together, sharing ideas and what they're doing, and kind of all trying to pull in the same direction. So I'd love to talk to you after the talks if you're interested, and thank you again for the time.